Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. Today I want to focus on Standard again because, wow, there is a lot of movement in the Standard marketplace. We have seen this before usually this is how it is when a new rotation happens. It means a lot of cards that survived rotation begin to see play, so they're going to move up in value. And of course, the new set is going to be highly impactful, the first set of the new rotation. And it's going to lead to a buying spree as everyone is trying out new toys, as well as trying to piece together just decks in general. So we've had a lot of good showings over the past couple days. We've had some Star City games opens. We had a PTQ on MTGO, and we had a couple of standard lists from just the MTGO leagues also start to trickle in. So we're starting to get a picture of the meta and where things are going. With that said, and hopefully I'll prove this to you, I think Standard is saved. And that takes someone for me. That's a lot. Someone that's really propped up Pauper. I was even on the Frontier bandwagon. I've tried to find alternate ways to play Magic and besides Standard, because Standard's just been so miserable for the last while. But it looks like we are entering into a decent Standard period, because it just doesn't seem like there is that many boogeyman decks. And I'll try to prove that to you, but first of all, we'll talk about the market, what's going on in the market. Standard is hot, hot, hot. It has been a long time since we saw an EV of $117 per booster box from TCG Player Mid Dawnglare. So this is basically saying that if you open up a box of the Guilds of Ravnica, this is your expected value. You're going to be between about the 115. Let's set it to TCG low and see where that hits off. It's still $81 a booster box. So if you're getting boxed at $80, you're making a slight profit on opening Guilds of Ravnica. And again, the market price is going to be somewhere in between this TCG mid and the TCG low. For a second opinion, we can go over to the MTG Stocks also has a set EV, and it's saying the low, you're averaging about $2.56 per pack. You times it by 36, you can get a number, that's going to be around the 80, high 90s, I believe. And then the average is around almost $4 a booster for the average, and $3.26 for the market price. So you're still looking at that over that $100 booster box value at the moment with the Guilds of Ravnica. And this has seemed to, we saw with Core 2019 as well as Dominaria, when you have the option for the pre-sales where a lot of those boxes get into the hands of the box openers quicker than usual, we see this come down a lot quicker than past sets where it had to wait. There was an actual pre-release, then a release, and then things started trickling in. So this is pretty crazy that a box EV has been able to sustain that value, and even more so when we go over to Guilds of Ravnica and see that it is not the mythics that are carrying the weight. We don't really have a lot of mythics that are worth a lot of money besides Doom Whisperer that's trickling up. It's the rares. See, we have a $25 rare in the form of Assassin's Trophy, and then a bunch of these rares between the sweet spot of the $5 to $10 mark. We have some of the Shocklands, which I don't think can hold for much longer, because something's got to give out of the set EV. And I think these are the big ones that have to give, because, they still exist from Return to Ravnica, which was a highly open set. But you can see there's a lot of other cards beyond the Shocklands, like Risk Factor, Pelt Collector. The Experimental Frenzy's been really ticking up, a $3.70 increase because of the mono red decks. Cards like Knight of Autumn, still around the $5 mark. Lots of these rares are still in that little sweet spot, and you keep going down. The big thing is a lot of these rares just justify the opening of the pack themselves. So more so than often, you're going to get a pack that has a rare that is worth the pack, and then maybe even some uncommons can be mixed in with it. The uncommons are quite good as well. Very, very popular ones like the Chemisters Insights, the Playcrafters, Lava Coils, the Conclave, Tribunal. All these are seeing a ton of play in Standard. So Standard is in good shape at the moment. Again, that could always change with the Boogeyman, but I am not under the impression that we have a lot of Boogeyman cards. When History Benalia is the best card in the format, or Lyra Dawnbringer, that's usually indicative of a pretty healthy format, because neither of those cards are format warping, in my opinion. They're not Heartocrans, they're not Scarab Gods, they're not even going back to even or even back to further ones like Emrakul's or Aetherworks Marvels, or things that Reflector Mages, those type of power level cards, format defining, format warping cards just don't seem to exist. Even Chain Whirler is just pretty so-so at the moment. So it's still a very, very highly played card, but there's some decks that the Chain Whirler just completely whiffs against. So let's get over to the meta right now. So you can come over here to the commonly played cards. You'll see that Duress is still the #1 played card because of the sideboards. Lots of Dimir and Golgari lists out there. And then History of Benalia, Liar Dawnbringer, Lightning Strike. So some of these Boros cards and mono red cards, Vraska's Contempt. Yeah, this is pretty much all the nuts and bolts of the decks. These are going to go in a variety of different decks, and you're starting to see the cards that are seeing a lot of play comparatively. Runaway Steamkin, that's another great one that's going to continue to go up in value as it's seeing a ton of play. So let's just get over to the actual meta. You see that Mono Red has trickled up, but this is basically one tournament that is showing a huge favorite to the Mono Red. A lot of other tournaments actually saw Boros Angels doing better, and we had some decks that were like the PTQ was actually even I believe it was the 9-0 list didn't end up winning it. It was a black-green list that ended up winning it when they cut to the top 8. But the only one that went 9-0 was the Jeskai Control with a really spicy card, the Azor's Gateway, and it's got my Brewer gears going. That I definitely think that's a pretty nifty little. Let's see if we can find the actual list here. I'll pick it up here. This Jeskai Control 9-0 with the Azor's Gateway. Now the problem with Azor's Gateway in the last standard was Azor's Gateway was completely unplayable due to Abrade. It was just such a liability to have your Azor's Gateway abraded. So now that that's out of the way, where there's nothing that's just in every deck and artifacts were a thing you had to kill, I think there's a lot more room for Azor's Gateway to be able to flip and get the value out of it. So there is the Knight, and there also is Thrashing Brontodon, and there's also Reclamation Sage that are running around that could kill them, but usually they're still sideboard cards, so game 1, a lot of times you can get away with the Azor's Gateway. So if you're looking for a good little spec, definitely come and check the companion piece video over at my second channel called The Rogue Market, where I do a Rogue Market recap, kind of collaborating with the two channels. So I'm sure the Azor's Gateway is going to hit one of my #1 picks. As you can see, the price of the card is still at really, really low, and I think that this gentleman has definitely found a good mix for Azor's Gateway. In fact, I've been messing with a list of just the red-blue with going heavier on like the Banefire as the X spell. This gives you a 1-drop that's really, really good for the Azor's Gateway. So between Expansion and Explosion and Banefire, I think that's enough. I think that is definitely enough you can even go to Dimir, and a nice little other juicy little spec is the card slips me at the top of my head, but you can cast all the cards from an opponent's graveyard. That seems like a little juicy thing to justify going into Dimir. And then you get some other cool little cards that can help set up the Azor's Gateway combo. Of course, you have to lose to Fairy, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, it's got that going. My point is that these, even though you'll see a lot of these lists, like Mono Red, lots of these have their own flavor. So this one is trying to curve out at Goblin Chain Whirler and using 2 of Experimental Frenzy. It's running the 4 of Steamkins. It is running no Flame of Kelds. It is running 2 Risk Factors. If you keep going down these lists, you'll see that again, there's a lot of different ways people are running them. This is a 4 Flame of Keld, 4 Risk Factor, Fanatical Firebrand in this one, and this one goes up to Rekindling Phoenix. What I'm trying to say is a lot of these mono reds do have some, at least War Boss in this one, have some customization. That's the big thing that I've been taking away from this standard. Even something like Mono Red hasn't even decided what their 60 cards are going to be. There's plenty of diversity in the slots. Boros Angels is another good one. A lot of times Boros Angels might even have a more aggressive end, where they start with some 1-drops into 2-drops and then go into the Angel Shell. This one, it just skips the 1-drop completely and then tries to go into 2-drops, then into 3-drop, and then into 4s, and then into Lyra. So like I said, there's even customization within something named Boros Angels. In fact, there's a lot of different Boros decks at the moment that are built for specific different matches, I'm sure. Esper Control, still a thing. Grixis Control, still a thing. You have the Dimir Control that doesn't even try to splash the variants. You can see that there's a Jeskai Control in here. We still have the Steel Leaf Champion deck, Celestia tokens, a different way to build Boros midrange. The Golgari midrange has so much. I'm wondering why it's only showing 4 decks, because if you actually collapse these or expand a lot of these, there's a lot of Golgari midrange that is doing quite well in the meta. So it is all over the place with things. So let's just check out this PTQ, for example. It was won by, I believe, one of these Golgaris. I believe it's Yamakiller that actually took it down. So some cool little things like expansion into Explosion. Still has a lot of room to grow at less than $1 a card. We even see that Azor's Gateway has a lot of room to grow as a mythic out of probably the best set to invest in, which is Rivals of Ixalan. Seal Away seems to be picking back up. There was a time period where Seal Away, I believe week 1, there wasn't a lot of Seal Aways that were being played. And it does, the one thing about Seal Away, it does miss a lot of the Vigilance creatures. So keep that in mind. There are some Vigilance creatures running around. Teferi's a 4 of in this one. And we are starting to see that the Deafening Clarion is being used in a bunch of not only Angels decks, but also the Jeskai control list. His Spinalia is still strong in sideboards. Search for Azcanta is actually getting less play than it ever has in Standard. It's actually, a lot of these throwing it to the sideboard. Some of them not even choosing to use it. But anyway, let's go down. So then there was basically an Abzan mid-range that thought that Splashing Knight of Autumn was the right call. This is a very versatile card, so if those burn decks do become big, here's a 4 life, leaves back a 2/1 body or 4 life. So, and if you are ahead, you can also have a beater and race the red. I've played a lot of mono red myself. The deck can peter off if you end up drawing more than 4 lands. Oh wow, it starts to really peter off, and these green decks especially can go over the top of it. So I do like the red. I've played a ton of it with Experimental Frenzy. Card is really, really good, and so is Runaway Steamkin. But I wouldn't say that this mono red is nearly as powerful as the Hazoret red that just rotated. I would say that Hazoret is more powerful than the majority of cards in the mono red list right now, and Beaumont Courier is 100% more powerful than any card that exists right now in the mono red. So mono red did get dumbed down a bunch, even losing the versatility of cards like a Braid. I mean, they still have the Wizard's Lightning, the Shocks, but there is a pretty versatile card for the sideboard that is no longer accessible. And again, even the ones that used to curve up to Chandra and Glorybringer, I still think is better than how the red decks are done at this point. So anyway, these Abzan decks have a lot of ways going for them too. We see tons of Wildgrowth Walker. Wildgrowth Walker is starting to see a lot of play in these Golgari decks. And then you have the Explore cards to back them up. I wonder why they run Seeker Squire over Branchwalker. I guess because if it gets explored, it can't get shocked. If that's the case, though, I really like the Ixalan's Explore card as well, the 0/3. I feel that was a really good card against mono red. Anyway, like I'm saying, there's a lot of room for these cards to expand. Like Vraska has been used in these decks. Vraska's Contempt, Fine Finality. Somewhat of these are always the Eldritch Reborn. This seems to be the removal package of choice. A lot of these don't even care about going to cast down because they do a good job of clogging the early game, and they need to take care of the late threats. What I like about Fine Finality in a deck, these type of decks, is how everything is basically a value-based card. If it goes to the graveyard, Fine Finality can then just get it back and get more value out of it. So I think there's a lot of tuning to be done with these Golgari mid-range decks. You can see that this was a sort of a Boros deck. It was more of a bigger red deck that was trying to go for Justice Strike as its only splash card, and was using Sarkhan Fireblood to ramp out a few of the dragons here. Apparently there's a glitch with this deck too. Someone tell me in the comment section what the glitch is. If it's getting Spit Flame back. I can't remember what it is for the win con there. Anyway, so the deck that took it down was Yamakiller, utilizing Llanowar Elves to ramp into a little bit quicker into the Jadelight range or even a Plague Crafter. That doesn't seem too bad on turn 2 to do a Plague Crafter or Killer Elf. Have back a 3/2 and kill your opponent's threat. Just really, this is the value deck. District Guide's even in here. And then I'm surprised that this one doesn't have copies of Fine Finality, as it has a lot of targets that are great to come back. But this was bigger on the Vraska and Vraska, and even a Vivian. So this is almost like the Golgari Planeswalkers with tons of value clogging up the board, and then using the Planeswalkers to get you there with some early spot removal. So rather than going the later spot removal like the Vraska's Contempt, it's going the early spot removal with Assassin's Trophy and Cast Down. Eldritch Reborn still looks like a pretty decent spec. I don't know, Dominaria seems like it's very investable again. If we go back over to Dominaria, looks like it's about $80 at the EV at TCG Mid. That's been, you can see, climbing up very significantly. So it was 69 not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, or actually it's a month ago, and it's gone all the way up to 79. And that's because there's a lot of the mythics that are holding the weight. I still think Lyra is destined to go up more than not, because you can see Lyra is the most played creature right now. People are playing an average of 2.5 of them in 36% of the decks. That is pretty significant. In fact, if you look down here, it's the most played card in the most amount of decks, even beating out Duress. And yeah, so after Duress by a substantial amount, Lava Coil will be the next one. So Lyra, I think, is a very smart investment. If you can still get in it low, it looks like it's gone from the 13 to 18. So it's pretty cool. Some of the cards we've called starting to go up. Lava Coil was another one I thought was a great little target at the 25-cent mark. I think it's gone up to 50 cents. Same thing with the Conclave Tribunal. Let's go back to some of these lists. Golgari has access to even cards like Golden Demise and Plague Mare for the sideboard. Deathgorger Scavenger is not seeing as much play as I think it should be. I think when Mono Red is going to be playing risk factors like crazy, Deathgorger Scavenger is very good at being versatile against Mono Red, either gaining the 2 life or getting rid of a risk factor. Neither one of those seems like a bad option for leaving back a 3-2. Yes, it can be shocked, but it still can get the value. I think it's where green wants to be versus those type of decks. The control decks, this is a Grixis that is basically just splashing for Nicol Bolas in the main and Ral on the side. I've been testing out some Grixis decks. I don't like the mono red matchup at all, but it still has a lot of game versus the other control decks. I think that Grixis is the best suited for the Esper and the Jeskai mirror, like kind of the control mirror, as they have a lot of game versus those decks. And they also do very well against the mid-range, like the Golgari mid-range. So it's kind of cool because we're starting to see a meta start to be established for Standard. Even have various control decks with this is just running 4 Crackling Drakes and Expansion to Explosion as the win con for this particular deck. This is a card I'm seeing a lot more see play in these not only Jeskai lists, but you never know when Grixis might decide to pick up the Expansion to Explosion. The thing that makes these split cards so good is that they have the ability to, the expansion is usually you're going to find a target versus almost every deck. Save maybe the mono green. The expansion's kind of awkward, but I mean, if your opponent is using a lightning strike against you, you can just expansion it and then kill off their Goblin Chain Whirler. It's not a bad card. It almost feels like a 2-mana counterspell because you're getting, not really counterspell, but you're getting value out of whatever's being done to you. And the explosion end of things, of course, is just backbreaking. Yes, it's 4 mana then X, but you do get the ability to do damage as well. So yes, you have to pump in a lot of mana, but when you pair it with cards like Ionize, you're just slowly ticking your opponent away until you can finish off with like a Drake or a Banefire. So this is a kind of cool little list. Bunch of 7/2s that you're going to start seeing with both the Boros and the Golgari lists. I mean, even like going into Trostani for like a bigger, so same little board stall with the Wildgrowth Walkers and the Explorer cards, and eventually hit a Trostani to pump them up. And I mean, that's kind of the way that the format is settling at the moment, is still trying to be more of a good stuff type value-based, or heavy into the control or heavy into the aggro. I'm thinking we're going to start to see some of these even more combo-based decks. I know that the Gruesome Menagerie was seeing a ton of play. Let's see if we can find that list here in a second. See if there's anything interesting from the Boros list. Rekindling Phoenix still looking good. It's still pretty low. This is one of the cards that I called. It is starting to see like it was ticking up, and online is often ahead of the curve. You can see that Rekindling Phoenix has already started to really increase in value from its low on MTGO. So paper is usually a couple weeks behind. Phoenix, 32 was its high, and it's just gone down since then. But I don't think anyone's really opening Rivals of Ixalan. Let's see where Rivals of Ixalan is at. 77, so it's still a little bit low. Ixalan and Dominaria. That's interesting, too, that Ixalan has a $95 booster box EV. So I think that, I guess it's a topic we can talk about right now about what might be happening. I do think a lot of the box openers got wiped out in a very, very stale Standard for years to come. And not only that, but we went through where Kaladesh was just overprinted and over-purchased. And that was kind of the era where everyone thought they could be a box opener because of the masterpieces that were in it. And it was just really threw the EV down, even with it was basically masterpiece or bust. When look at the invocations of Amonkhet hold a whole $11, or almost 10% almost 25% of the EV is if you get an invocation or you don't give an invocation. Look at Kaladesh, $35 without an invention, $56 if you do have an invention. That is a huge chunk that is all about invention or bust. So I think that was the biggest issue with Standard, is just people just cracking case after case, trying to hit those invocations and inventions and expeditions, and it just threw the price of Standard down, with a Standard that was not able to support those type of cards, because we saw basically the same decks for a long period of time. I mean, right when Kaladesh came out, Vehicles was a deck. So you had the Scrap Eat Scrounger, and then you had Mardu Vehicles right off the bat, and then of course Heart of Cran was printed, and it had some periods of times where it wasn't the number one deck, but it was still a deck through the entire history of the Standard. And same thing when Glorybringer came out, it really Mono Red was a deck that was completely around for the entire longevity of the Standard format. So anyway, yeah, I think that's what Standard has going for it right now, is no Boogiemans, so people have to play multiple cards to test with multiple decks. They don't know what their deck is going to be, so it's caused purchase after purchase after purchase, and it's had these just amazing box EVs that we haven't seen from sets in a long time. I wish I had a little more price history here. I think you can go back. Let's look at one for, let's look at like Amonkhet, for example, how Amonkhet started off. So hopefully this has the value back. This goes back, yep, so it came off at, still though the low was insanely low right when the set came out, and then just really petered off from there, all the way down to $1 booster pack of the expected value of Amonkhet. Look at it all through its entire history, and we're seeing both, like we're seeing all the sets right now, every one of them. Like, what's the worst one? Maybe the Core set? Core 2019 is 67? Yeah, Core is the worst. And I actually like Core. I think there's a lot of things going for Core. In fact, it's trickling back up. So across the board, Standard is trickling up. And yes, of course we see this with rotation. And of course we see this when something like Kaladesh rotates out, and Boogeyman cards like Scarab God just rotate out and allow for so much potential cards. There are the cards like Scarab God and Hazoret and Heart of Cran. They really kept a lot of things back from being played because it was just, they were strictly better than everything else. So why play anything besides playing those particular strategies and cards? So this is really interesting. So I think you should definitely keep your eye open of these trends. There seems to be a lot of them that are trending up. Like a card that I don't like is Resplendent Angel, but I mean, it's proving that people are using it. I don't know why people want to spend a card that just gets removed by basically all of the removal. In fact, I think people should be playing a lot more of the Harpooners right now, as the Harpooner is even a good Lyra Dawnbringer killer, and that's a pretty good counter to anything out of Angels. So what I'm trying to say is everything seems to have some ways to interact with them, but some ways to brew decks specifically. If one of these does become big in the meta, there are always ways to fight it, and that is indicative of a very, very healthy meta. As we scroll down these, like even some of them deciding to go for like Legion War Bosses and other ones not. So this is a really, really exciting time for Standard. So anyway, I will try to get through of 10 cards that I think are good investments and have the follow-up video for the Rogue Market. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, come check it out over at YouTube. Just actually type in the Rogue Market. It should find the channel. I know I've used the terminology of the Rogue Market a lot on this channel, but I decided to start a whole dedicated channel to talking about it. And then we'll have some cool picks. I'll scour through these lists. Like I said, look at Gruesome Menadria. 4 of in a deck, and it's $2. That can't hold. But I don't know. It's kind of the scale that we're on here. Like if all of these cards are seeing so much play and they go up in value, then the set EV keeps going up in value, and then something has to give. So how much is Ravnica going to be opened is the question. I'm thinking quite a bit. I'm thinking it might give Dominaria a run for its money. I just think that people are opening Dominaria because it's got a $50 mythic is always more attractive than a $22 mythic. And that's what the Guilds of Ravnica does not have going for it, is like a really solid mythic besides the Doom Whisperer. I mean, there's a rare in the set that's worth more, and that might be enough to attract people to buy into it. But all in all, I think that there's just there's a lot of different ways to play the game right now, which is going to lead to a ton of different decks, and it's going to lead to at one point in time, maybe this deck will be the Boogeyman deck, and then someone, oh wow, we need to go under it, so they're going to build a faster deck, and then the faster decks will get beat out by the mid-range decks. And those are the times that I like Standard the most. I know some spiky players really loved Kaladesh. They really loved especially Amonkhet Kaladesh or Hour Devastation, those type of stuff, because they knew what the best deck was, and they knew how to play the best deck, and they perfected it, and they perfected the numbers on it, especially even against the mirror. That's not how I like to play Standard. I like a wide open Standard, and I think it's even very, very easy right now to even have Rogue Brews. Can you imagine that? We can actually build rogue decks and actually be successful. So hope you got some out of this market Monday. Not really too financial, really more just talking about Standard, and it's in a very, very healthy place, which is going to, in my opinion, hopefully get more people to play the format again. We're not going to see, hopefully we won't see dead Standard showdowns and dead FNMs based around Standard. Hopefully we'll see some GP attendance increase as people get excited, or wait, it's not even GP, it's called Magic Fest. Speaking of which, I don't know if this video will be out first, but I will be talking with Legendary Mana later on today about some of the specifics with the GP change and some of the other questions around the WPN. So you can come and check Legendary Mana's channel for that. And yeah, I think that's all I've got today. Have fun out there with Standard. It is a wide open format. It looks like people are playing Arena like crazy. I'm hoping that Wizards can make the smart decision and actually start investing in Arena rather than saying, hey, it works, it's a cash cow, we're not going to add a chat room, we're not going to add ways to challenge your friends, we're not going to really put a whole game into it rather than just a front page that queues up in different formats. That's what it feels like right now. That's really it. It's you go to a front page, choose your format you want to play, and play. It doesn't have the whole online gaming experience at the moment. And I know it's still open beta, but man, they need to really grind down if they're going to have a product that is going to be able to compete with Hearthstone and Arena. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this shorter Market Monday than usual, but you will have a more in-depth one at the Market Monday recap. As always, thanks for watching.